doing a great job handling everything and just enjoying seeing the process, rep to rep improvement, taking coaching points from Josh or Wes or myself, and just continuing to build on techniques, fundamentals, rhythm, timing, all the things that go into playing quarterback in our offense. And excited. It's just fun to be out here with him on the grass.
This is an A. You know how I feel about Dallas Turner. I've been raving about him for years. I think his best football is in front of him. I don't think you always saw his best last year at Alabama. You will see it with the Minnesota Vikings. They know a thing or two, by the way, of drafting edge rushers. This is a great pick for the Vikings.
You know, you guys, at this point, I just need to jump straight into the Minnesota Vikings because this team just had a really, really good draft class, and it's going to make their team a lot better because of it. They not only added to their offense with the most important position on the field, but they also gave Brian Flores more to work with on the defensive side of the ball, which is exactly what they needed to do. I don't think they just added some players that might make their team better. I think they added players that are going to make their team better, and I said in my previous Vikings video, if they found a way to get the talent that I think they could in this draft, they were going to be one of the scarier teams in the NFL. And now that the draft has happened and they got who they did, I think that came true, and I do think this team is going to be pretty scary going forward. But before we get into why I exactly believe that, if you like Minnesota Vikings content just like this, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any Vikings videos for the remainder of this offseason. Okay, so to get back on topic with the Minnesota Vikings, of course, this team is coming off a season where they didn't live up to expectations, mainly due to Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson dealing with injuries throughout the year, which led them to finish the season 7-10 and not make the playoffs. This, of course, wasn't what anyone expected coming into that season, and with Kirk Cousins having an Achilles injury, it left the Vikings with a huge decision of whether to sign him back to an extension or to let him walk in free agency. And, as we all know, they ended up letting him walk, and I think that was the right decision, and I think most Vikings fans would agree with that. He's only going to get older, and at this point, we've kind of seen what you're going to get from Kirk Cousins, and that's probably not a Super Bowl, so I think it was time to move on and go get yourself a young quarterback, and that's exactly what the Vikings did in this year's draft. They went out and moved up one pick in the draft to get their guy, JJ McCarthy, out of Michigan, and while a lot of people hate on JJ McCarthy, I am actually a huge fan of him. JJ McCarthy is a guy who has the perfect size for what you want an NFL quarterback to be at 6'3", 202. And on top of that, I think he has a lot of tools that are going to make him one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. He has a pretty strong arm, and he's also shown us that he can throw the ball over the middle of the field in tight windows on a pretty consistent basis. And I think that's the main reason why Kevin O'Connell wanted to draft him. Kevin O'Connell is a modernized play caller, which means you're going to see a lot of short posts around the middle of the field to guys like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So you've got to have a quarterback that can make those throws, and that's exactly what JJ McCarthy can do for you. He's not scared at all to be aggressive down the field or over the middle of the field, and that's usually an issue young quarterbacks have, but I don't think that's an issue you're going to have with JJ. And if you bring in a quarterback that has talent like JJ McCarthy, and he's not scared to throw the football, you're probably going to see a lot of success when you have a tight end like TJ Hawkinson, and you also have a receiver duo of Jay Jettas and Jordan Addison. So while I do think he would probably struggle if the team he went to was very bad, I don't think he's going to struggle a ton in this offense because not only does he have a lot of talent around him, but he also has a great play caller that's going to make his life a lot easier. Not to mention that he also is a lot more athletic than people give him credit, because when you watch his tape, you actually see him use his legs a lot more than you would think, and you also see him use his legs just to get out of the pocket, to extend plays, to help find people downfield, and that's a huge plus for a young quarterback. Now, he's not perfect in every aspect, but that's why it's good that he's just 21 years old, so he has time to develop, and he's super malleable still, so Kevin O'Connell can turn him into the quarterback he wants him to be, and I am actually really confident that he's going to have a pretty solid rookie season. But what I love about this Vikings offense is they're not going to just have to rely on him to carry the load. They also went out and they signed Aaron Jones at the running back position, which is going to allow them to run the ball extremely effectively, which is going to make JJ McCarthy's life so much easier. They can lean on the run, and they can also run a ton of play action, which will help get guys a lot more open down the field to make JJ's reads a lot easier, which is something that not only young quarterbacks need, but it's something that all quarterbacks need. I think it's also nice to mention that the Vikings have two extremely good tackles, and their offensive line overall isn't too bad, which means he's also going to have a decent amount of time in the pocket, and it also is going to make the run game even better than it would be if it was just Aaron Jones doing all the work. So man, I don't know. I know it's a risk to take a quarterback in the first round, especially that high, but on top of everything, we also know that this guy is just a straight up winner, and he finds ways to win football games, and we saw saw that the entire time he was at Michigan, and if he brings that same mentality to the Vikings, I really don't see a way where he turns out to just be a terrible player or just a straight up bust. At the minimum, I think he's going to be a solid game manager that can win you football games on a rookie contract, which is a lot harder to get than most people think. But still, when you look at this team overall, they needed to go out and get some stuff on defense as well to pair with this offense, and that's exactly what they were able to do in this draft. In the first round, they traded up again to pick 17 because there was a guy there that shouldn't have been there in Dallas Turner, so they had to make a way to go get him. And going and getting Dallas Turner this late in the draft is an absolute steal for what this guy brings to the table. I mean, we're talking about a guy that, number one, is just 21 years old and at the same time is one of the most athletic guys in this draft class with all the potential in the world to be one of the best edge rushers in the entire NFL. So to get him this late in the draft is unbelievable, and I think we're going to see Brian Flores use him in a ton of different ways, which is going to make life hell for a lot of offenses that they play against. I expect him to be used in a lot of different stunt situations, and due to him being so athletic, I'll also see Brian Flores dropping him into coverage to throw the opposing quarterback off guard, and that's a lot bigger deal than most people realize. So to add him to a defensive line that you already added Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel to is absurd, because I think these guys rotating in and out could honestly make up one of the best pass rushes in the league. But even with the additions to the defensive line, you still needed to add more to this secondary because they needed some pieces too to give Brian Flores even more to work with on the back end, and that's exactly what the Vikings were able to do. The Vikings may not have had a second or a third round pick, but somehow that guy Khyree Jackson fell all the way to the 4th round, and they were able to get him, which is an absolute steal. I mean, this is a guy that was supposed to be taken in the 2nd or 3rd round, so to be able to get him in the 4th with his size and his athleticism is one of the best draft picks of value in this entire class. I mean, he is 6'3", 195, and he still managed to run a 4.5 40 and jump 36.5 inches at the combine, which just shows you the potential that this guy has. He's extremely good in contested ball situations, and he's also an extremely good zone coverage corner, which is probably why Brian Flores wanted to get him so bad. Flores is a guy that loves to run a ton of crazy zones on the back end, so to add a guy that's already good at zone coverage is going to make this defense immediately better. On top of that, he's also not scared at all to be physical at the line of scrimmage, and he will get his hands inside of your body and knock you off your route, which is another huge plus to what he brings to the table. So while yes, he was a 4th round pick, and 4th round picks usually don't turn out to be good, I think this is a specific scenario where this guy is going to come in and have an immediate impact on this team, and if he does that and he comes in and makes this secondary just a little bit better, this team overall, like I said at the beginning of the video, is going to be not only a contender, but they're also going to be extremely scary to play against.